So in my last video, we talked about whether or not you can use your primary residence to start your real estate investment journey, which if you think about, the average householder in America has $300,000 of equity, and that equity could be used to buy other investment properties and work towards financial freedom. And in my last video, I also challenged my brand new apprentice, Carson, to take a look at the numbers on his first 5 investment deals to basically figure out whether he's doing it right or whether he's doing it wrong. Here's what Carson doesn't know, is that he thinks I'm apprenticing him for the next year, but the reality is, this is his audition. Basically, I'm gonna decide on the performance of his first 5 deals, whether I'm actually gonna mentor him or drop him. Let's see if he sinks or swims.
Okay, so true to form, I've done a bad job of keeping track of all the documents that were sent to me when I bought different homes. Fortunately, my wife kept digital copies and she was able to send them to me so I can go through them and we can get some of these bad boys printed. Let's go. Got mostly everything I need to put my numbers together. And hopefully it will impress Kris. So once I have my numbers together, I think we can go and actually visit each of the primary residences that I bought here in Utah, and then I can show you where I'm building. Hey Kris!
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good.
Where are you off to? You got your stuff?
Yeah, going to do the assignment you gave me.
Dude, let me see the numbers.
No!
Did you mess up?
No, I just don't want you to see it yet. I haven't gone over it yet. Let me present the numbers when they're ready and they're all organized, and I can show you exactly what's going on.
Okay.
You'll be proud, I promise.
We'll see. All right.
It's going good though. This is a good exercise. Okay, so we're gonna go look at the first deal that I did, and this one was a huge lesson for me, and Kris was right that he kind of signed off on it and knew it was gonna be a good deal. Another one of our colleagues, Tyler Bennett, he vetted this one for me as well. So like, I had a lot of hand holding and making sure this one was a good deal, and you're gonna see the numbers, like looking back on it, I'm like, man, this was really, really good. And it taught me a valuable lesson, because when I was first looking for a house and I said I wanted a home in Utah with a basement apartment, and then I was talking to a friend about, who's also has done some real estate, and I was telling him my price point of how much loan I could get, right? My debt to income ratio determines how much of a loan I can get from the bank. And when I told this friend my number, he's like, oh, you won't find a home in Utah with a basement apartment for that price point. And I just gotta reiterate the danger of taking information like that as gospel truth. If we have a friend, family member, someone we respect that tells you, you can't do that. You'll never find what you're looking for in Utah right now. And by averages, what you typically find in Utah, my friend was right. But he was wrong, because once I got to searching and we didn't settle and we kept looking, I found the deal of a century, and it all worked out.
Okay, so this is actually a proud mentor moment. Carson is actually displaying the mindset that I spent a long time trying to teach him. It's this idea that in the real estate world, people are not going to believe what you're trying to do. Your spouse may not even believe what you're trying to do. Your friends won't, your family won't. And it can be really discouraging to hear from them saying, dude, you can't make that kind of money in real estate. You can't get those kind of returns. But he's getting it, and he's doing it, and he's going after it. And that mindset is required to find an extraordinary deal and to make the kind of money that real estate can. It takes a level of self-belief when realtors are saying that's not possible, loan officers are saying that's not possible. You have to believe in yourself when no one else is willing to.
And I'm really proud of this house, because everything that Kris talked about when he was training me on Monday, talking about buying the right starter house and not to be looking for, granite countertops. And this house wasn't a lifestyle purchase. But with time, everything else about the deal is what made it so sexy. So on the surface, it wasn't that amazing of a house. But after the fact, the numbers and the cash and the ROI is what made it so sexy. That's the one right there. Dang good house, but not for the reasons that you'd expect. This is a trip down memory lane for sure. This is a really good find, but it's like for none of the reasons that you would expect. In fact, as I was pulling up here, I was remembering all the things that I was like, not excited about this location. This is a very busy road. It's like a shortcut to get from North Orem over to State Street. And you're gonna see cars coming all the times. And with young kids, I wasn't excited about that. We just had the upstairs, which is only a 3-bedroom, about the size of a typical apartment. In fact, the small townhouse we came from had a larger kitchen and dining area than this house had. A few streets that way, like we're talking about location, a few streets that way is low income housing. And not that that's the worst thing in the world, but you know, it factors into it. I mean, the neighbors across the street, bunch of junk cars in the yard. And I mean, it's just not like, it's not what most people think of as paradise, and it's not what most people would be looking for when they bought a house. And it's kind of a starter home, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do this, but it's gonna propel us forward. And I'll tell you right here, this is the thing that we were excited about. 535 North, 537, it's the basement apartment. Kris, you're gonna be really proud of this. I hope you're proud of this.
I am so tired of him framing up like this hopeful, I hope you're proud of me. Can I just say, you gotta fall in love with the deal and the balance sheet. Like, this dude's emotional.
Purchase price, $280K. I did, with closing costs, I did a down payment of $11K. Interest rates at the time were low, 3.8. Our monthly payment was this is the kicker. Our monthly payment was $1,376, okay? But then I rented out this apartment over here. Her name was Cynthia. She was actually in it before I bought the house, and so she just stayed in. It came with a renter built in, which was amazing. Cynthia was paying about $850 a month in rent, and the delta there left us with a mortgage payment of about $500. Now I know what you're thinking. Kris bought this dope house down in Provo, and the basement covered his entire mortgage, which is awesome. Like, to be in that situation is amazing. But honestly, to only be paying $500 a month for rent for a 3-bedroom, that was a game changer for us. For most people, your mortgage payment ends up being your biggest expense.
So it is true that your mortgage is your #1 expense, and anything that you can do to mitigate that, bring that down, have someone come in and help cover it, is, I think, the #1 way that you financially allow yourself to get ahead. Like, think about it for a little bit. You have a job, and the most important financial decision you'll ever make in your life is how much you pay yourself. And you can pay yourself more if you're smarter with your biggest expenses. So for example, car and house. When it comes to a house, you can be smarter about it and say, well, I rent out some of the rooms, or I rent out a portion of the house. What that does is, in Carson's case, is that saves him $850 a month. That's 10 grand a year. That's $10,000 that he can put towards investing. You know, you see a lot of young kids out there like, oh, I bought a Tesla and my payment is like $800 a month. And it's like, yeah, like, why did you do that? Like, you could have gotten something with a $300 or $400 a month payment, and you could have saved an extra $400 or $500 every single month. That's money going towards your financial future.
So to have that reduced to $500 a month because we had a basement apartment, it enabled us to do the thing that Kris is always talking about doing: save to continue investing. We were super able to save money.
I'm actually proud of Carson on this one. This one, he did solid.
When we sold the house for $465,000, which means I made a gross profit of $182,000. Net profit of about $170 when you factor in my $11K down payment, which is an ROI of 663% ROI. It's pretty freaking crazy. So what this means is, after we moved out, for about a year, we rented the upstairs and the downstairs. And downstairs at that time we were charging about $900 a month for it, and upstairs we were charging about $1,400 a month, with the mortgage still being only $1,300, which means we were cash flowing between $600 and $700 a month. That is an additional income just by having bought the right house. Now, before you get too excited, you need to check with your city on what their regulations are, because after about a year we found out that Orem does not allow multifamily in a residential area like this. And we were forced to sell the unit because we weren't allowed to have 2 renters in the house. It either needed to be owner occupied or single family. So we could have rented the house to one person, or live in it and rent the basement. Those are the options. So we had to sell. Now, it's been a while since I lived here and I'm super curious what they're currently doing with the house. So I'm just gonna go knock on the door and see if anybody's home and if they're willing to tell me anything about the current standing of this house. Hi there. My name's Carson. This is gonna be really weird, but I used to live here. We were doing a documentary about the rental properties that I bought through the years, and this was actually the first one that I bought. And I just had some curiosities. It's now been years. How's it going? Do you like renting here? Yeah? Question for you. If you had the opportunity to buy it from the current person who owns it, would you guys want to do that?
Probably not, just because our goal is to stay debt free. So eventually we want to buy something cash.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably buy like a single family at that point.
Gotcha. Cool.
What is wrong with these people? I swear Dave Ramsey is like infiltrating everyone. Like this whole idea of being debt free, it's like it feels good being entirely debt free until you get to retirement age and you have not saved enough money, because you put all of your effort into having no debt, which meant that you never had leverage. You never had your money working for you. And it means that when you get to retirement, you fall so short.
Kris, I had to bite my tongue when she said, we want to buy cash. I was like, oh, we've got some Dave Ramseyites. Should I start a fight right here? Wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth it, but we'll get to that later. Okay, here's where it's gonna get interesting. Because Kris did not vet my next house. And while I think it was still a really smart buy, this one was bought a little bit more for lifestyle because we knew we were gonna be there for a few more years. But we were just in a better position financially. So while we didn't ratchet up the loan amount that we could get, it's still, I mean, I'm being cagey about it, and you're gonna see my current house. It's where I live right now. It's nothing fancy. It's the one after that Kris is gonna have some interesting feedback for me on. I'm actually pretty proud of how we went about acquiring this home. As I mentioned at the house in Orem, that we didn't sell that house in order to get into this one. So the question is, how did we cover the down payment on this one? And this house was a little bit more expensive, so the down payment was almost double what our Orem house was. And what I actually did is I took out a HELOC on the house, a home equity line of credit on the house in Orem, and then we used that as the down payment on this one and then moved into this house. And for about a year, rented both the upstairs and downstairs at the Orem house, which was an awesome situation. Kris, let me give you the full rundown on the numbers for this house. So purchase price was $440K. We put $20K down, and at the time interest rates were at an all-time low, so 2.5%, which is awesome because that means our mortgage is $1,969, so about $1,900. There's a lot of reasons we bought this house that we liked about it. It was a little bit more lifestyle. As you look, it's a quieter neighborhood. There's a brand new subdivision just over here, new homes, lots of young families. The house is a little bit nicer, a little bit prettier, and it backs to the Murdoch Trail, which is a huge plus for us. We love being up close in the mountains. The views, we can see the valley from our porch. In the backyard, I can show you the view of the mountains. But again, the real kicker of why this house was such a steal are these steps over here. There's a basement apartment down there where I currently have tenants.
Makes me happy. He's getting it. Like every time I see him walk around the property and he shows those basement steps, he's got it. Like, yeah, there's probably a lot of other houses that he and his wife would have preferred to have if they weren't real estate investing. They could have bought more house for themselves. They could have enjoyed that for their family, for their 3 young daughters. But instead they're making a sacrifice. They're sharing a wall with someone because that person is gonna help cover the mortgage. And when you're young, saving as much money as possible and investing it will take you so much further into the future than when you wake up one day in your 50s and 60s and you're like, wow, I really prioritized myself, I didn't delay gratification, or worse, I trusted a 401k and an IRA instead of real estate investment. And now you're too late because you don't have time in the market. You're gonna have to play the game maybe until you're in the 70s.
And even though our mortgage is about $1,900, our tenants pay $1,300 a month, which means that leaves us with a delta of about $600 that we're paying in rent. Our rent did not change all that much from moving from Orem to here. We increased our lifestyle a little bit, yes, but our rent went from about $500 a month to $600 a month once you factor in the tenant in the basement. There's actually two other homes that come in next. We lived here about a year, then we ended up having to sell our Orem house because someone reported us to the city, and we walked away with 180K, which is great. And we used that to now buy two more homes in Florida with Kris. The numbers on those homes are just phenomenal because, I mean, it's your turnkey real estate that you do. Being one of your partners is really pretty freaking amazing.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Carson's journey as he's trying to figure out how to become a successful real estate investor. If you want to know the manual that he used to figure it all out, it's right here. It's called The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. This book has created so many millionaires, and who knows, you might be the next one. Click the link below and grab your copy.
I do want to give you some of the final numbers here because we're gearing up to sell this house here in a few months, and so I've kind of started to figure out what is our current equity, and I haven't gotten super specific on it, but we think we could sell this current one for about $650K, which when we bought it at $440, it is appreciated over $200,000, which is like a 47% ROI on this buy, factoring in that we only put $20K down on the loan.
So you've broken ground and poured foundation and made a commitment to the bank on a $1.3 million house because you think this house will sell for that equity of $200,000 and that you'll actually get the money. That is definitely counting your chickens before they've hatched.
So to answer the question, can your primary residence start your real estate journey? For me, it has. It all started with that Orem house, and then this just continued to propel it forward. So we lived in this house for about a year when we were forced to sell our Orem house, which ended up to be a very powerful windfall. And Kris took me aside. There's actually a YouTube video you can check out where Kris told me, do not take this money and pay off student debt or pay off cars with it. He's like, you better go buy more real estate with it, and we did. And so here are the numbers on the properties that we bought after that. Bahia Pass Loop in Ocala, purchase price, $213K. Now I bought this house for $440, and the house in Ocala, $213K, so we're staying below that median that Kris is always talking about. Down payment. Now this is the kicker because I'm not living in it. It's not a primary resident. It's an investment property. The down payment was $62,000. Interest rate 3.5%. Mortgage isn't insane, about $1,200, and we are renting it for about $1,700, which means we're cash flowing about $450 a month. Okay, our second house in Florida, you're gonna see the numbers are very similar. We bought it for $206,000. Below the median, put $61K down for that 20% down payment, and its mortgage, it's actually just under $1,200, $11,900, and it rents for $1,675 a month, which leaves us with a delta of $480 about on a monthly basis for cash flow at it. And we've held this one for almost the same, 3.5 years, and it is appreciated pretty similarly. They're in the same town. Man, these are cookie cutter homes where the deals all look very, very similar when you go buy with Kris.
So Carson's held these properties for 3.5 years. When he got in, they were around $215, $220. Now they're worth around $270, $280. So they've gone up about $60,000. That's not normal for a 3.5 year period of time. But that is normal if you know how to invest in the right markets. So one of the reasons why Carson is winning so big here is because I took him where I already knew we were going to have our biggest winnings. He's got these two properties, they've gone up in value, he has positive cash flow. It could be very tempting to want to sell them and expand the portfolio. I think that's premature. He's 3.5 years in right now. They've gone up $60,000. I think in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, they're probably gonna go up another $30,000 or $40,000. And in the meantime, he's gonna keep bankrolling that cash flow. He's gonna keep getting the tax advantage. And before he sells them, I actually think you should actually refinance them, pull the money out, keep the property, keep winning with it, and go buy more. I don't see a reason why you can't take these 2 properties and turn them into 4 properties.
Now the nice thing about these, unlike my primary residence where I was crunching a lot of numbers on my own and trying to figure out would the math work, Kris's team was just like, no, we've already crunched the numbers on these houses. They're good deals, you should do them. So I hopped in and did it, and they performed great. So we are building a new house, and in fact, it's just down the street. So why don't I show you guys and let's go talk about it. Now, this is the part of the story where I diverge a little bit from what the typical new person in real estate is doing. And what's happened is all of the benefits of real estate have propelled me forward to get to the point where I could do something like buy, almost 0.4 acres piece of land in Utah. And I know if you live in a different area, $330K for a chunk of land, that's insane.
You sunk $330,000 cash into your lifestyle? Bro, that's like 4 more houses. Like, where's the delayed gratification?
My houses in Florida are cheaper and they have a house on them. I paid way more, a premium, to buy land in Utah. And that's the reason that Kris is always preaching, don't buy investment properties in your backyard if you can avoid it, because there's better areas, and Utah is definitely not the best place for investments. But let's talk a little bit more about how I funded it. So after 10 years of following Kris, and after 7 of being my own real estate investor, this is the first time that we really did go all in on lifestyle. But I'm hoping, Kris, that you'll sign off that you think it was at least intelligent lifestyle. So we bought the land for cash, $330, and we are building a home on it, and that will cost roughly about $900,000. So the delta between the two is $1.2 or $1.3 million for this property. Now, that's pretty crazy, but there's definitely crazier houses here in Utah, in my defense. And the really cool thing about the situation we're in is it's like, how did I fund that deal? I funded it with the land. To secure the construction loan, the bank already had someone come out and do a full appraisal on the property and the plans and what were the additions we're planning to make to the property. And they confirmed that it already has some built-in equity, that this entire property will be worth more when we're done than when we started. So the bank feels really good about my numbers, which is great to know that there's already building some equity in there.
Guys, I'm into it 1.3, and when I'm done, it could be worth 1.4. I'm like, the economy has to fart and you lose $400,000 like that. That $100,000 is that's bogus.
Okay, so now what I actually want to do, Kris, is I'm gonna walk you over here and I'm gonna tell you one more detail about this house that I think you're gonna like, that may save me in your estimation on whether this was a smart buy or a dumb buy. So I'm walking you in to what will be the future Tejan garage. And the reason I wanted to walk you over here is because in our plans, we have built in above the garage, there's going to be a 2-bedroom apartment on this house as well. So even though our mortgage is going to be a little bit higher, it's going to be about $4,000, we are planning on being able to rent the upstairs for at least $1,300 a month, which means we're getting this $1.3 million home. And our payment on it is just going to be about $2,500 a month. So you have to let me know, what do you think of those numbers? Was it smart? Was it worth it?
That's what I think. $4,000 a month mortgage, like, he's so early in his investment game and he had houses to buy. And then instead he built this monstrosity. But there is a little bit, not much, he's gonna get a scolding. There's a little bit of a saving grace. He can probably rent that 2-bedroom above the garage for, in that area, $1,800 a month. So it's not gonna cover half his mortgage, but it's gonna put a dent into it. If you're ready to continue Carson's journey and see what he does with this chance that I give him as he learns about equity and to see if we can salvage his real estate portfolio, click right here. And if you want to see the full debrief of Carson and I going toe-to-toe on his portfolio choices of this last episode, click right here and watch the podcast.